All right,
And
we're live.
setting
All
up.
right. All good on your side, Richard?
It just reloaded, so you think you're good. Bye.
All right.
I'll be
Thank you
here.
so much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending your Sunday with us. My name is Teresa. I am the event manager at the Rep Bodice. We are so excited to be collaborating with everyone today on this virtual event fundraiser. This will be moderated by Jaclyn Friedman. Just a reminder, in the video description, you can shop all of our panelists' books from the Rep Bodice, supporting an indie bookstore, and a portion of those proceeds will also be donated to their candidates. And I will hand it over to our moderator, MC Jaclyn.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sex Educators for Democracy. We are so excited that you could be with us this afternoon. We have an incredible lineup for you, so I'm not going to yap too long because I want you to get to them as soon as possible. But I will tell you a few things first. One, my name is Jaclyn Friedman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the founder and executive director of an organization called Educate Us. You can find us at Educate Us Action to learn more. We are organizing for sex education around the country. Two, the comments will be moderated, so play nice. Just be a decent human and you'll be all right. We are gathered here because the stakes for sex ed and for democracy are total in this election, and it's not an accident those two things are aligned in this way. Sex education is a fundamentally democratizing force. It teaches not just bodily autonomy, but key skills for interdependence, coexistence, conflict resolution, healthy relationships, all the things you need to have a functioning democracy. It's also, therefore, no surprise that authoritarians and fascists love to attack it and ban it whenever they can. And our situation in the US is no different. We know on page 2 of Project 2025, which is the rights playbook, that they plan to make it illegal to teach sex education. I'm sure you'll be hearing a lot more details about what that plan is from our speakers today. But I just want to lay out the stakes. The stakes are serious today. But this election is still within the margin of effort. I know you hear a lot about the margin of error. I want you to think in these closing weeks of the election about the margin of effort. If we all put in the effort, we can win up and down the ballot. And that's why all the donations that you are going to make today, when you feel inspired by our speakers using the link that's linked to in the video description, are going to support the Harris-Walz campaign, as well as U.S. Senator Angela Alsobrooks, who's in Maryland running to keep her seat, and Delaware State Senator Sara McBride, who is running to be the first trans person in Congress. These are incredibly crucial races, incredibly powerful candidates, and we hope that you'll support them today, either by making a donation at the link in the bio and by buying one of our or all of our books, a portion of which will go to support these candidates as well. So enough from me. I'm going to turn it over to our first incredible speaker, Dr. Tanya Bass, who's going to kick us off.
Hear me because I've been having Zoom issues. Okay, great. Well, hi everyone. My name is Dr. Tanya Bass, as stated, and I'm also known as the Southern Sexuality or Southern Sexologist. My background is in human sexuality. I am here in the state of North Carolina, and I'm joining today because I just want to talk a little bit about what I've seen in the project and kind of how I have witnessed some things here in our state and what I've read in the Project 25 proposal or document. One of the things that stood out for me, and as you were talking, I was thinking about sex education overall, but one of the things that really fused sex education in many places, especially in North Carolina, is the use of data that comes from the Centers for Disease Control. And so I was looking at what was being stated about Health and Human Services. And so how I even came into this work is through public health. I have a degree in public health. I actually teach public health. Public health is sexual health. And so when I think about looking at the document and what's being stated around not supporting the CDC, or looking at what's happening around the use of data around maternal mortality. All of this comes back, in my opinion, to sex education. What I was saying earlier and thinking about being in North Carolina in public health, how I came into sex education is because I was working in HIV prevention, and I was doing that through a public health lens, and then expanding that lens. I don't want any of the work of the Centers for Disease Control, any of the work for my colleagues. I was a disease intervention specialist. I've worked the gamut in public health, let's just say that. And I've learned a lot, and I think it makes me a better sexuality educator, because I've seen and witnessed some of the gaps that can happen in public health. And I think if we don't support the right candidates in our states and nationally, then we're going to continue to see these gaps. We're going to continue to see misinformation and fear-based sex education prevail throughout the US and maybe sometimes internationally. So I wanted to just offer up a voice of understanding the impact and the importance of sex education, not only just globally and nationally, but specifically looking at the work and the importance of public health educators, many of whom work in public health departments, who work in community-based organizations. And so the work of the CDC, the work of the department, National Department of Health and Human Services, as well as state departments of health and human services. And even in our state, we have local health departments of health and human services and public health, divisions of public health. I just want to make sure that we're supporting all of my colleagues and friends who are out there doing the work in the community. Real quickly, just tell a story. One of my colleagues is at their county fair and was right across from, I'm trying to figure out how to say things politically correct, but also just keep it real, but was across from another campaign, another political party. And some constituents came up and said, ugh, I don't even support public health. How? Like, that doesn't even make sense, given in a rural North Carolina. And here in North Carolina, we've been used to, in the rural area or the eastern part of our state, dealing with not only the COVID crisis, but every year, annually, dealing with natural disasters like we're dealing with now in the western part of our state. For someone to have the ideology that public health doesn't matter in what they do, even as it aligns with sexual health, is beyond normal comprehension for me, because these are the very systems and people who help protect you and provide information and get resources to you during a natural disaster. So that's where I am on this. And the book that I'll be sharing and that you'll be able to buy is Noni Talks About Racism. I was actually able to co-author that with two of my colleagues. And I think that is also an important aspect of uplifting racism and oppression in sexuality education and not erasing a history that is important to us. So I'll just pause there because I don't want to go over my time and see if there are any questions that come up.
Thank you so much, Tanya. And talking about public health is so important. And it's so much about also what sex ed is about, which is building a sense of community and interdependence, right? That attitude that we don't need public health is so much coming from like an individualistic, this idea that we don't need anybody else, which is so toxic in our country right now. And sex ed is such a great way to get young people to understand that we really do need each other and how to be interdependent. It's not surprising that the folks who are against sex ed are also against public health, and we need them both so desperately. Thank you so much. Yeah, and buy Tanya's book. It's fantastic, and it benefits the candidates we're benefiting today, the Harris-Walz campaign, the Alsobrooks campaign, and the McBride campaign. Okay, next up, you're in for a treat because we're going to hear from a good pal of mine, Elle Chase.
Hello, everyone. I'm Elle Chase. I'm a sex educator, a writer, and a coach. And when I was thinking about today and what I wanted to talk about, I really wanted to focus on the down ballot. It's just as important as what's above the down ballot, the up ballot. I don't know what you call it. I'm calling it the up ballot. So it's just as important as the president or VP that you're voting for. These are your local representatives, your senators, your governors, et cetera, and also really important initiatives. For instance, there are 10 states where there are initiatives that directly affect abortion rights. I know of, just happened off the top of my head, one state, I think Connecticut, where gerrymandering is on the ballot in some way, voting rights. So state legislatures look different from state to state, but all across the country, they pass the laws that most affect Americans' day-to-day lives. So it's important to know that every state with a Democratic-controlled legislature uses its power to protect constituents. They're supposed to, at least. And in the past, Democrats that have included protecting the right to an abortion, acting on gun safety, expanding Medicaid, and raising the minimum wage. So when you look at your down ballot, and we're so close to the election in November, you might ask yourself, what can we do right now to help spread awareness and information at this stage of the campaign? Well, you can do all the usual things that people do, like phone banking, canvassing, knocking door to door, that kind of thing. But what if you're disabled and those things aren't realistic for you? Or what if you're a raging introvert like me and phone banking just makes you break out into hives? There is an organization called Vote Forward. I think Emily knows about this because she's doing this, that aims to send 10 million postcards reminding voters in key states to get out the vote. So all you need for this is a printer, paper, stamps, and a pen. You can send postcards, you can send letters. That is a really great way to get the word out and encourage people, especially in those key states, to make a voting plan and get out and vote. Also, what I've discovered this year, this voting season, is you might be surprised how many people you know just don't vote on the ballot, on the down ballot, when they're not familiar with an initiative or when they're not familiar with a candidate. So what I'm doing this year is I am researching the down ballots where my friends and family live and who I know are aligned with my values, and sending them a list of candidates and initiatives to take with them to the poll so there are no wasted votes. It may seem small, but it is something that you can do right now to help that there won't be any wasted votes. This is especially helpful if you have friends and family who live in states with very close races. I'm in New York. There's a very close race for reps here. New Jersey, certainly Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and for governor in North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Washington. Like I mentioned, the initiatives on abortion, 10 states this fall. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking voteforward.org. If you have any questions about this or you're looking for other ideas, you might want to go to the webpage for the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, which is the official Democratic Party committee dedicated to winning state legislatures, and they are dlcc.org. And that's it. That's what I've got. Feeling very passionate about that, about Jaclyn's organization, Educate Us, Be a Sex Ed Voter.
What a great shirt you have, Emma.
Oh, it's a wonderful shirt. I got it from the Educate Us little shop.
At educateUsAction.org?
Yes, educateUsAction.org. And you can also get one of their magnets and put it on your car. That's all I'm saying.
I want to also say down ballot is where I live and where we live at Educate Us, because down ballot is also where school board races happen.
Yes.
And a lot of sex ed policy gets decided at the school board level. So if folks are interested in finding out more about who's running for school board and when, they should take our sex ed voter pledge at educateUsAction.org while they're over there getting a t-shirt. Because school board races matter so much if you care about sex education. So thank you for getting us fired up about going all the way down in the election. Elle.
And one more thing about that with the school board is that you might have friends and family that don't have kids and they just glance over the school board. But it is so vital as a sex educator, so incredibly vital, that we get sex ed friendly school board members in our community, because this affects our kids who grow up to be adults, who end up possibly dating each other. And we want to raise good humans with good values when it comes to sex.
It influences our whole society. Think about it. If the Supreme Court all had better sex ed, think about of all our elected officials, if our doctors, our police, our judges had better sex ed, what a different world we would be living in. So it doesn't just matter whether you have kids in school or not. Sex ed matters to everybody because it shapes the culture that we live in. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Elle, my love. You were fantastic. And don't sleep on Elle's book, Curvy Girl Sex, which you can buy at the link that is pinned in the video description and benefit the Harris-Walz campaign, the Senator Alsobrooks campaign, and the McBride campaign, which we really hope that you'll do. And if you aren't in the mood for a book, if your to-be-read book pile is like mine and you're like, I just can't anymore right now, just make a donation. Make a donation right now at that link in the video description to support these incredible candidates. This election is within the margin of effort. I'm going to say it again and again. It is up to us. It is up to the effort we make right now. Stop worrying about the margin of error. Start worrying about your margin of effort. And that starts with us being all here today. Next up, I'm really, really excited to hear from this next speaker, Lucie Fielding.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's really an honor to share space with all of you today. I am a sex therapist, a sex educator, a kink educator, and the author of the book, Transsex, Clinical Approaches to Transsexuality's Erotic Embodiments. And when I think about the present moment, you know, we've been in the midst of, at least since the Bostock decision was handed down, which was the decision that that applied to Title VII, that made sure that queerness and trans folks were included as part of Title VII protections. Ever since then, we have found ourselves, trans folks, queer folks, in the midst of a moral panic, at the very center of a moral panic. And so the stakes for us are, and for many others in the document that, you know, purports to set out a second Trump term, Project 2025, the stakes are existential for many of us. You know, I recall back in 2023, one speaker at the CPAC conference suggested that trans folks are a social contagion, that we're pornographic, and that we are here to sexualize children, and that their solution is nothing less than to eradicate us from public life. And I take that seriously. I take it seriously when Justice Thomas writes in a concurring opinion on the Dobbs case what he would like to do next. I take all of that very, very seriously. In light of all of this, in all of the awfulness and the fever pitch of anti-trans violence, why talk about trans pleasure and trans erotic embodiment? Why talk about queer pleasure? Why talk about pleasure in general? And I think we would be right to ask such a question, and I find myself asking it a lot myself, as, you know, it's hard to be in one's body right now, I think, for a lot of folks. And I think it can feel sometimes overindulgent. I want to remind us, as the queer theorist Jose Esteban Munoz would, that the present, the here and now, is a prison house. To stick only to the present and to its minimal transports is to be confined only to what is visible today. to the realm of the pragmatic, to piecemeal gains, and to the stale and meager offerings doled out in a pique of noblesse oblige by dominant groups. I want more for us than to simply subsist in an anti-trans present, to survive transphobia and homophobia. I want us to thrive. I want all of us to thrive. And so as grim as the present moment is, I have hope, even if it's on some days a hope that I must shield from the wind, lest it blows out or flies away. I'm, as some friends referred to me in the 90s, a smiley goth. And my hope is grounded in the deep knowing that we trans, non-binary, gender expansive, two-spirit folks, our allies, are ingenious as fuck. And it is also grounded in the deep knowing, as Tourmaline writes in her exquisite essay on freedom dreaming, that these conditions will change, that a world filled with softness and beauty and care is not only possible, but inevitable. And I think that pleasure and talking about pleasure, being in our bodies, being in joy, is the path to our thriving. Pleasure is the conduit. And to quote Munoz once more, to dreaming other ways of being in the world and ultimately new worlds. And I hope you'll dream with me. Thank you.
Lucie, I am speechless. Thank you for that. I'm honestly quite choked up. Thank you. What a gift. Yeah. And we are collaboratively co-creating that world of pleasure. And that's the only option. It's the only option. So I really, that was balm for my soul. So I know many people probably feel the same. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. And if that was moving to you, I hope that you will go to the link and donate. We've raised almost $700 so far. Our goal is $2,500 to go to these crucial campaigns to get us closer to that world of pleasure that Lucie just so beautifully described. So whatever you can give, it really matters. And that link is right in the video description. It's hard to know how to make a transition after that, but it's my job to do it. So thank you, Lucie. And also check out Lucie's book, Trans Sex, also at the link in the video description. Proceeds also going to the candidates today when you buy it from the Ripped Bodice, our hosts. I'm going to then turn it over to our next speaker, the author of the forthcoming book, A Good Sex, Candice Hargons.
Lucie ate that thing right on up, right? Oh my goodness. I was moved deeply. And now I'm going to talk about why a vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for good sex. So in May 2021, I was celebrating becoming a newly tenured associate professor at the University of Kentucky. And that evening, I called out help to my husband. I was in incredible pain, but due to my socialization as a strong Black woman from too early an age, it was so rare for me to ask for help that he knew it was an emergency. I didn't know yet, but I was suffering a fallopian tubal rupture, one of the most extreme symptoms of an ectopic pregnancy. I was internally bleeding out, and by the time I received the care I needed, it was near fatal. I live in Atlanta now, but I was living in Kentucky, and in both states, abortions are banned. At 6 weeks in Georgia and completely in Kentucky, both suggest that preserving the life of the mother is an extenuating circumstance under which you can consider an abortion. But I'm a Black woman, like Amber Thurman, like Candy Miller, like the many people with uteruses whose names we'll never know. Reproductive injustice, and it's including but not limited to abortion bans, disproportionately impacts women like me. So I was terrified to have sex with my husband for months following that reproductive trauma in 2021. And then heartbroken in 2022 when Dobbs went into effect, knowing I'd be even less likely to get good reproductive health care. And more recently, I was terrified just last year in June when I learned I was pregnant with my second son. I'm grateful that today he turns 9 months, but when I realized I was pregnant, I had to advocate for an early ultrasound to ensure he was implanted in the right place. I exhaled when I received the news that he was, because I feared what it would mean if I needed an abortion had he not been. So a vote for Kamala Harris, a staunch advocate for reproductive freedom for all of us, is a vote for good sex. Sex that is good to and for everyone involved is difficult to come by, all pun intended, when you fear for your life. So for the 10 million sexually active women who want to continue having access to emergency contraception as an option, vote Kamala Harris. Because Project 25 is proposing to limit support of this form of preventative health care. Some states are proposing to further restrict access to contraception like IUDs. And without these options, sex educators and therapists like us are already hearing how good sex, in this case, safer sex, feels more like a risk than the pleasurable experience that Lucie talked about. So I want all of us who want good sex to have the option legally. Ethically, it's our right, but ethics have not ruled the day of this political climate. I want same gender loving people to be able to enjoy good sex without being harassed and shamed by our country's leaders. I want abstinence only sex ed to be replaced by comprehensive, medically accurate sex ed so that our foundation for good sex is a solid one from the start. And I want everyone, especially those of us who've been socialized to be strong, to have a political climate where we can ask for help and expect to receive it. Only one presidential candidate is going to help us get to all the ingredients that make up good sex. And yes, we need to go down ballot, down as far as you can go. My name is Candice Nicole Hargons, and I study sexual wellness and liberation as an associate professor at Emory's Rollins School of Public Health. And I'm excited to vote blue with you. Thank you.
Oh yeah. We are so glad that you are thriving. So grateful for you. And may I add, Kamala Harris is not just a vocal repro justice advocate. She is explicitly a sex ed champion. She says it out loud with her whole mouth. Several, even earlier this year, before she was even the candidate, she was the first sitting VP to visit an abortion clinic. And while she was there, she made sure to talk about sex education. Nobody asked her to. So she is not just a better option than Trump. She is like an actual champion for sex education. Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Oh my gosh, you all are crushing it. We have raised so far almost $2,200. So we are raising our goal to $5,000 because every dollar counts, and we are in that margin of effort land right now. So we are seeing that effort. We are seeing the inspiration. Keep it up. Keep buying those books. Candice's book, Good Sex, is coming out soon. You can pre-order it now, which makes a big difference for a book that's coming out. And when you pre-order it through the Rip Bodice, in the link in the video description, part of the proceeds will go to the Harris-Walz campaign, the Alsobrooks campaign, and the McBride campaign. And or just keep making those donations. You all do an incredible job. I'm going to keep the momentum going by turning it over to the person who brought us all together today, the incredible one and only Emily Nagoski.
Thank you so much, Jaclyn. This has been I've been crying for this whole half an hour already. It's thrilling and exciting. So if people don't know, I'm Emily Nagoski. I have a PhD in public health from Indiana University. I am the author of Come As You Are, about the science of women's sexual well-being, Burnout, about the science of women's stress, and Come Together, about the science of sex and long-term relationships. And I'm being thrown back in a major way listening to Dr. Tanya Bass, whose work on Black Southern women's sexual pleasure, by the way, changed my work. And if you are the kind of person who uses Google Scholar, Dr. Tanya Bass, you're going to have your mind blown. Until she has a mainstream press book published, no pressure, But I was reminded that in my first semester in my doctoral program back in 2003, the department was so excited to have a new faculty member fresh directly from the CDC. He left the CDC and joined the IU school, what would become the School of Public Health, because the W. Bush administration was interfering with the CDC's independence to make recommendations based on science rather than ideology. This is not a new problem. It wasn't new 20 years ago. It wasn't anyone who remembers Ronald Reagan administration. We remember the way he treated the AIDS crisis and knows that the CDC was told, look pretty and do as little as you can. These are not new problems. They are ongoing problems that we are going to have to continue. All of us will have fought for our entire careers and will continue to fight for all of our careers. Sexual health involves such a wide range of policy issues, including not just sexuality education itself, but both abortion and sexual violence. I'm going to include a link. I'm going to copy and paste it into somewhere and hope somebody can put it someplace. There we go. It's a long video, an interview with Latifah Simon. You only need to watch the first 4 minutes of it after we get done here, obviously. Here's Olive, who's excited. But this is Latifah Simon talking about her work with young women who were being sex trafficked back in the early 2000s. And a young city prosecutor called her up in San Francisco to involve her in the city's prosecutor's office to change the prosecutor's office approach to sex workers, specifically to stop them from arresting and prosecuting victims of sex trafficking. P.S. Latifah Simon is currently running for Congress. Anyone lucky enough to live in California 12 will get to vote for her. She's also a recipient for that work. She had already been a recipient of a MacArthur Genius Grant. I mean, so obviously that young lawyer in the prosecutor's office was Kamala Harris. And when I hear that story and the way that she spoke with and worked with survivors, so I started my work around sexual violence 1995, 96 at the University of Delaware. I am a Delaware native. Delaware is such a small state that, yes, Dr. Jill Biden was my 10th grade English teacher. So I went to the University of Delaware and I started training at the Sexual Offenses Support Group. This is a group whose work was being funded by the brand new Violence Against Women Act. But in all these years, 30 years now, I have never heard a presidential candidate talk to and about and with and for survivors of sexual violence the way Kamala Harris talks. And I am far to the left of virtually every political candidate I have ever voted for. But when I hear Vice President Harris talk about sexual violence and about abortion, I hear something unlike anything I've ever heard from any politician. And I think it's a direct result of her personal experience of the life that she has lived, in the body she has lived it in, and in the communities that she has lived in. And I am genuinely thrilled to get to vote for her. Contrast that with Project 2025, which would put, literally, I'm not exaggerating, put librarians in prison for shelving books about gay penguins. But the main thing I want to talk about is my first job out of undergrad, 1998, which was at a for-profit therapeutic detention center. It was a prison for teenage girls who were incarcerated for non-violent crimes. I had all of 3 years of experience as a sex educator at that time, in my primary role as a counselor at the detention facility was not as a sex educator, but I had this experience. I'm 21 years old. I'm a few years older than these girls. I grew up down the street from them. Anyone familiar with Wilmington, Delaware? I grew up a couple of blocks from the charcoal pit. And Grace Cottage was just a couple of miles down the road from there. So these girls had grown up mostly like a few blocks from me. And I was not more than 7 years older than they were. Several of them were pregnant. We know that any pregnancy, when you're 14 and 15 years old, that's a high-risk pregnancy. And part of the agreement that they signed when they came to this therapeutic detention center was that they were going to abstain from sex on their weekends home. And because like I was the sex person, one of the girls came up to me after her trip home for the weekend and said, Miss Emily, yeah? Miss Emily, I had sex when I went home with my boyfriend. Okay. Okay. Why? Okay. We didn't have a condom, Miss Emily. We didn't have a condom. So we wrapped it in plastic wrap. And she was telling me this because she wanted a pregnancy test and an STI test, which was so responsible of her. And as the harm reduction advocate that I am, even then, this is my first job. I'm 21 years old. I have no idea what I was doing. I lasted 3 months in that job because just like morally, it didn't feel real good to me that we were not providing them with condoms because they weren't supposed to be having sex. But I was like, that was a creative solution. And I think you're right that making sure that you follow up with a pregnancy test and an STI screening is a really great idea. When I think about sex education, I think about that student and her experience, that young person who was being denied access to really basic information that she needed immediately, and that I, in that job, was not allowed to give her. I want to live in a world where nobody gets to the point of having partner sex without knowing and having access to the resources they need to protect their own well-being. I think that promoting sex education is one of the most conservative positions anyone can have, because if you are against abortion, a really great way to prevent abortion is to make sure everybody has access to comprehensive, inclusive, evidence-based sex education, because we know that it prevents pregnancy, which is a really great way to prevent abortion. So if you are against abortion, you better be pro-sex education. And also, just by the way, for the super conservative people out there who are interested in preventing young people from having sex, we know that sex education delays sexual debut, one of my favorite words from the research, this silly phrase that means it delays the age at which people have their first experience of partnered sex. I don't care at what age people start having partnered sex, but if you do, if you want people to wait, sex education is the way to do that. I am way less conservative than people who care about that. But if people care about that, they should be promoting sex education. Of course, we know, as people have said, that it's not really about preventing sexual partnered sex. It is not really about preventing the pregnancies. It is about punishing women who choose to exercise autonomous control over their own bodies. And this is the part where I could get real fucking mad, but Jaclyn told me to end with hope. And let me go back to how I feel when I listen to Lucie speak, and when I listen to Tanya, and when I listen to Candice, when I listen to all of these amazing people, and I think about the ways that our work might actually be respected and heard at higher levels of government. When I hear the way Kamala Harris speaks about women and abortion access, even though I know we're on a knife's edge where it could get really bad, we could also be at a pivotal moment where there is a bursting forth, a flowering of access to high quality sexual health information in the world. When I see all the work that people are doing and the true possibility that exists under a Kamala Harris administration, I just, like, my heart breaks for the hope of it. And I am 50% rage and 50% just burgeoning hope. So thank you all so much for being here. This is truly, I can't wait to hear everybody else talk.
Emily, what is there to say? I'm right there with you on that razor's edge. I'm right there with you on that razor's edge of hope and rage. And what we do now and in the next few weeks is going to partially determine which way we go. That's why I keep saying we are in that margin of effort, and you all are making an incredible effort. We are up to over $3,500 raised today, just in the last 40 minutes. You are all incredible. Keep it up. We're trying to hit $5,000 for the Harris-Walz campaign, the McBride campaign, and the Alsobrooks campaign. Keep it up. We have a couple of questions. One is from Melody Ann, who says that the fine print says non-Americans can't donate. As a fellow Canadian, how else can I show my support? It's a great question. I'm going to say off the dome here, the best thing you can do is text all your American friends and make sure that they're donating and voting and doing everything that they can. You can be a cheerleader. You can also do what Elle suggested, which is help them research their ballot, help them research, be able to go all the way down, go down on your ballot. And you can help them figure that out too. So there's lots of stuff that you can do. Absolutely.
I'm going to interrupt briefly and say that Canadians absolutely can donate to educateUsAction.org if you're interested in supporting sexuality education in the United States.
I wasn't going to say that, but I appreciate you saying that, Emily. Absolutely. And we welcome it. We are organizing and trying to get school board candidates elected across the country. Yes, go down on your ballot. It happened in the room. It's magic. Everyone spread the word. Go down on your ballot. Okay, that's going to be hard to follow, but if I know anyone who can, I know that our next speaker can. Please give a huge welcome to Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh.
Thank you so much, Jaclyn. It is hard to follow. I'm like, oh, what else? I didn't want you to stop. So good afternoon, good evening from wherever that you're joining us. As Jaclyn mentioned, I'm Sara Nasserzadeh. I'm a social psychologist, so I study social norms, social behaviors, and patterns. I'm an advisor to various organizations, including United Nations. So I work at the macro and micro level. So that's the policy work, working with governments and schools and strategy and research. And on the other side of it, quietly behind the closed doors, I work with heartbroken and disillusioned and confused parents and young adults as a couples counselor, psychosexual therapist, and, but today I actually wanted to talk about something that is near and dear to me and my main role in life. I feel like we all have three main roles at any given time that we choose from. One is activist. So here is the justice that is happening. Here's what is happening. So let's see what is not working, having the torch or the flashlight and then looking through to steer the pot and making it loud and, give problems names. Advocates are the ones who bring resources to the table. So what we are doing as a collective today for me is that. But for me personally, I most identify with my role as a practitioner. Practitioner is a person who on a daily basis is client-facing, is strategy-facing, research-facing. So kind of get the job done with the specifics. That's my role today in this conversation. One of the things that everybody talked about, and all of us are from so many different walks of life today, which makes it wonderful and colorful as sexuality is. For sexuality education, we talk about, I was actually thinking, when we talk about sex, people immediately think about genitals. So we all have them, right? So we all are born with some form of genital or the others. But it's really interesting. The way that we talk about it could be reduced to just physiology or the hygiene, how to keep it clean, how to ignore it, how politicize it, or how to bring it into giving it sensationalized, like when we want to sell a shampoo, for example, the person needs to look like they're having an orgasm when they are using the shampoo. So from that extreme to the extreme, and not talking about it is so convoluted. And as you can tell by my accent, I lived in so many different countries and I speak quite a few languages. It's fascinating to me as how American culture, I'm American, proud American by choice, by the way. It's interesting because, believe it or not, people still look up to us. So wherever in the world that I work or travel, oh, what do Americans do? I'm like, you don't want to know. Because when it comes to sexuality education, we are so dispersed and discongruent. And it's like, depending on who you meet, really, that, you know, the quality of it, right? So one of the things that is important for me today, for us to walk away, is to, one, know the importance of sexuality education. Tanya, my good colleague, Dr. Tanya Bass, talked about how important it is and how it's connected to public health. And also, I want to develop on that further. I'm a part of the World Association for Sexual Health and the World Health Organization. So the way that we define sexual health is beyond not being diseased. It's beyond that. Sexual health and sexual well-being, meaning that how do I feel in my body as a woman with a genital of any sort, right? That affects your self-esteem right there and then. And then that is going to determine how you show up for yourself, for your body, in the negotiations in intimate spaces with your child, with your sibling, with your parent, with whoever that is around you, even at the workplace, right? So that's important. Sexuality education, please don't reduce it to just the genitals. It's not just the genitals, it's the role that it has in our lives and determines how we perceive ourselves and how we connect with other people. That's one. The other one is, if we can really think about sexuality education, because of the low budgets that we assign to it, sometimes we get really low quality sex education. And if you've been unfortunate to face those, I am so sorry. But to change this, the situation is not just to eliminate the budget or eliminate it altogether. It's actually quite the opposite. Let us be in support of it. Let us be contributing, like what you're all doing with your contribution today, to bring in resources that matter, good quality educators, evidence-informed, culturally appropriate, culturally sensitive. And we have so many different good educational programs that they're not only talking to the children or the young adults, but also they are empowering the members of the communities. I personally work with clergies who come to me and say, well, I have these people with these questions. How do I answer? What is the accurate thing? And I so respect that, right? So, but if we really pour our resources behind sexuality educators and the organizations that support those, that is how we can get good quality sexuality education so that we're not scared of it. We don't think that they're going to go against our values and what we're talking about. That's actually quite the opposite. They're going to enable you as parents, grandparents, aunties, communities, and clergies, whatever your role is within your community, right? So that is my invitation to you. That's supported sexuality education so that we can have a better quality sexuality education than not. Now, one last thing I want to finish with as a practitioner. I saw that, Emily, you promised people on your Instagram thingy that you're going to walk away with some tips to do in your own life. So let me give you something, everybody who is on the call, whether you are in an intimate relationship, in a partnership with anyone, in anybody that you are occupying, if you are parents, if you are siblings or teachers, or in your workplace. So we talk about how to empower people with eloquency to be able to express what they're experiencing, right? So we give people lexicons, a range of vocabularies to be able to express yourself, especially in North America, that we talk about everything, right? We have words for everything. So let's do that as a touch lexicon. So here's what I would love for you to take away. Next interaction that you have, try to, if possible, consensually give a touch to the person in front of you. It could be your child, your, a spouse, whoever. And then ask them, what sort of a touch did you think I gave you? What was the message I wanted to convey to you? And then they might say, well, actually, I felt this was a cold touch. It was a pal-pal touch. This was a reassuring touch. This was an unwanted touch. This was like, let's get to the bedroom touch. Whatever that was, right? So starting very, very small, just to elaborate and expand on our touch lexicon. Then that will lead to consent and all of that. Believe it or not, that's a part of sexuality education too, not only the genitals. Okay, love you all. And I know you will do the right thing. Make us proud.
Sara, thank you. And you can find that exercise, I think, in Sara's book, which is called Love by Design, which if you go to the link in the video description go to Ripped Bodice and buy that from the Ripped Bodice today, portion of the proceeds will go to the campaigns we're here to support today, which you all are going hard for. We are over $5,000 raised. We have set a new goal of $7,500. We're going to keep it going even past the end of the hour when we're going to wrap up, because other people, we're hoping those of you here today, when we release the video, will share it with your friends, and that we can keep the momentum going. But we do have one more incredible speaker, and that is Dr. Karen Rayne.
Thank you, Jaclyn. Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, y'all, I have been sitting over here just like mesmerized. This is just, I don't know, talk about hopeful. Like, I feel like every one of you have brought such a unique and beautiful perspective and lens and stories to this hour. And I'm so grateful to be here, to be able to be listening to all of you. And I'm kind of excited to go last. You know, with my last name Rayne, I almost never go last. And so I'm kind of into it. I'm excited about it. And I want to bring us home here thinking about human rights. And this is why I started my organization. Oh, hi, I'm Dr. Karen Rayne. I'm the executive and co-founder of Unhushed. I'm really bad at introducing myself. I forget every single time. One of the reasons that I co-founded Unhushed was that I wanted to have an organization that was based in human rights. And I wanted to be able to talk about human rights and sexuality education as a human right. You know, we think about bodies. We all live in a body, right? I call it our weird shaped skin sack. We all live in ours, and there's no way to get out of it. However, we might want to, or we might not want to. We don't have a choice. Here we live in our bodies. And so understanding how those bodies work seems to me to be the very most basic of our human rights. If we don't understand our physical bodies in all of their hormonal, anatomical messiness with all of their fluids and all of their feelings, how are we going to get through our days? I just don't know. I don't know how we can get through the day without understanding how we physically live in our systems. And we can take that idea, right? That idea of it's a basic human right to receive sex education, and we can take that into the classroom and we can use it as a way to think about all sorts of cool things, you know. So we have a lesson plan where at the high school level, we have high school kids in the United States taking, the Bill of Rights and looking at the First Amendment. And they're looking at that amendment and talking about how it applies to sexuality. What do we have a right to do with our sexual bodies that is intrinsic in that First Amendment? And so I invite college kids, I invite high school kids to think through these questions. And they come back to me and they're like, this is fascinating. You know, so often they feel so distant from the Bill of Rights, right? We learn about it in middle school and then maybe we don't look at it again unless we're going to go to law school. And so many people feel very distant from, these founding original laws, and for lots of really good reasons why, yes, all of those reasons, absolutely. And nevertheless, we can take what's written there and think about the application in our sexual selves in ways that is life affirming and leads us to a what now? How are we going to be more explicit about our rights as sexual beings, our rights as people living inside their weird shaped skin sacks? How are we going to get people to have the support of this basic human right of sex education? And let me tell you, it's not Project 2025. So that's my too long don't read. It's not Project 2025. We need a different vision. And I'm really excited about the vision that Kamala Harris is bringing. Nobody, including Kamala Harris, is me. And so no one has exactly my perspective on anything. But you know what? I don't actually need my public representatives to have my exact perspective on every single thing. That would be a pretty narrow world, in fact. And it's not the one that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a place where we can have conversations and we can have differences and we can talk those out. And I'm really excited by the prospect of Kamala Harris doing that as the president of the United States. And I'm excited about what that means for getting sex education as a basic human right in this country. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to have heard all of the things that all of these amazing speakers have had to say, and I'm excited for this election.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited too, Karen. What a way to close. I just heard, literally, as you said that we've gotten over $8,000 in donations from y'all watching in this hour. Keep it going. We're gonna raise the goal to $10,000 to keep it going even beyond. I have a few thoughts I want to share just to wrap us all up and bring us home. The thing that's been making me so emotional listening to all y'all is it has been a struggle that I think some of the folks on this call have been engaged in, but not enough people beyond us have been in, to get people to understand sex education as a political issue. The right has understood sex education as a political project for decades, which is why they have got leveraged tax money to pay for abstinence propaganda in schools for decades. But those of us who actually teach and value sex education have too often thought about it as an individual or school-based question. And we really have to understand it as a political organizing, as an issue to organize around, as a fundamental human right that we must organize for and galvanize people for. And the energy in this room to do that is just making me feel like we can do that. We are doing it right here. And this is the energy I want folks to come forward, that sex ed teaches us how to be in community together, and we must be in community to fight for sex ed for everyone, not just our own kids, not just ourselves, but everyone, because that is how we get to that world of pleasure that Lucie described. So don't forget to go down on your ballot. Don't forget that the election is in the margin of effort of all of our efforts. Don't forget to keep giving money at the link in the video description. And I want to close with some words that Lucie shared in our presenter chat a little while ago from the sacred queer ancestor, Leslie Feinberg. And I think they are just more powerful than anything I could say. So these are going to be our closing words today. So I just want to say also appreciate so much Emily Nagoski for organizing us, and the Rip Bodice for hosting us, and all of the incredible leaders here who shared their wisdom and insight today and motivation. I'm just full of emotion. I'm fired up and ready to go, and I hope everybody is too. We really can and also must do this. So don't stop. Don't leave it all on the field. Run through that tape. Don't stop. Let's get it done. And here are the words from Leslie Feinberg. The truth is, you and I are the stuff that great leaders are made of. We don't have to wait for a distinguished white man on a horse or a politician wealthy enough to win office in a multi-million-dollar campaign to usher in justice and equality. The ranks of rebellions and revolutions that have shaped human history have been made up of people like you and me. The people who make a difference in history are those who fight for freedom, not because they are guaranteed to succeed, but because it's the right thing to do. And that's the kind of fighters that history demands today. Not those who worship the accomplished fact, not those who only believe what is visible today, but instead people of conscience who dedicate their lives to what needs to be won and what can be won. I am confident that you and I will find each other shoulder to shoulder in that historic struggle. I'm so honored to be in that struggle with all of you, and I'll see you out there. Bye, everyone.